in the Bible. So there are plenty of immoral things in the things that are considered to be immoral in the Bible, but the specific things I want to speak about today is slavery in the Bible. Sounds like a plan. Think about.
Hey, how are you? How are you doing?
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going all right. How about you?
I'm doing good.
Good, good. So, your background of saying that there is no immorality in the Bible, I am wondering why you do take slavery to be moral, I guess.
Because it's not what you're impicting in your head.
Okay, when we're talking about slavery, what does that mean to you then?
I guess I wouldn't give a definition. I would give more of a mental image. What you would depict Western American slavery, whips, lashes, kidnapping. That just wasn't what was going on in biblical slavery, sir.
So when I say slavery, I'm talking about the act or practice of people owning people as property.
Yes, I don't think that that is inherently immoral.
You don't think that it's immoral for people to own people as property?
Inherently, no.
Why not?
Because especially back in the times of freaking Jesus or before Jesus, this was more of a social construct. This was more first and foremost, you didn't own somebody because let's first get rid of the first thing that we're gonna get rid of, right? You didn't enslave someone because of their race, sexuality, and anything of that you would define as discriminatory. Like, you know what I mean? These slaves weren't being discriminated against. They weren't being prosecuted and put into slavery because of the color of their skin at all whatsoever. It was purely because of their social status, and they were poor and they couldn't feed themselves or their family. So they had to turn to slavery in order to feed themselves and their family. But it wasn't forced upon them.
I understand that that is the case for some of the slavery happening back in the near Middle Eastern times. That's
Give
not
me a
the case
case
for
where
all
it's
the
not the
slavery.
case.
Well, because you were able to become a slave through different means. One is you were sold into it, you were born into it, or you were at some point an indentured servant who somehow became a slave through the changing of hands and stuff like that. It was actually very common that um, a lot of the slaves came from being sold by family members. So, and we see that in the Bible as well. Fathers being able to sell their daughters. We see that repeatedly. Actually, we also
Again,
see in
okay, you don't
we also see
okay,
in
let's stop there.
passages.
Let's stop there. Let's please stop there because we're not gonna interpret things out of context. In context, when a dad is selling his daughter, he's not selling his daughter. She's not getting SA'd. She's not getting sexually assaulted. None of the things that like
I didn't
what
say anything
you're.
about that.
I know you didn't say that, but you're indirectly implying them by saying you're saying that your fathers sold their daughters in a negative connotation, and the reason that you're reading it in a negative connotation because when you believe in selling someone, you believe that they have no rights, and you're just inherently false. So when
I never said
and
that either. You're making a lot of assumptions on what I'm going to
I'm not
say.
making an assumption. You're making a claim, and it's based on ignorance. And you can say something
No, it's based
without.
off of biblical scholars that I've read.
Okay.
So again,
You can.
you're making assumptions on things I'm going to say, and
I'm
they're
not
not what I'm
making
going to
assumptions.
say, and they're not what I'm actually.
You implied that a father selling his daughter into this said slavery is inherently just bad and immoral. So if you're implying these things
No, no,
by
sir.
bringing it up, I'm gonna.
My claim was that back in the day, in that time period, most of the slavery came from families selling their family members, which we
What's
also
wrong
see
with
in the
that, sir?
Bible.
What's
I
wrong with that, sir?
Yes, I think it's wrong for people to sell people so other people can own them as property. I think it's dehumanizing and oppressive.
Okay, what's your definition of property?
Property, something that you own as an object. It's something. It's just literally something that you can buy, you can trade, you can do anything to. So yes, I
Okay,
think that if I think dehumanizing a person and stripping them of their ability to have their autonomy and make their own life choices is a problem. I think it's dehumanizing. I think it's oppressive. I don't think it has to be based on sex or race for it to be considered slavery.
okay, so let me tell you that that's your opinion, and maybe you just need to cope, right? Because you just don't understand. So boom, I am selling my daughter, right? Let me tell you that I'm not selling my daughter. I'm placing her under contract with another human being, saying that my daughter is going to work for you for this set amount of period of time, and you're going to pay her this set amount, right? So this is completely different from saying I am just going to sell my daughter and she is just property. No, there's a contract involved and there are rights given to these slaves. These slaves have rights, more rights
It
than
depends on
some.
the slave.
No, it does not, sir. That's your subjective opinion and that's
Well,
your
no.
understanding.
It
Listen, that's
depends on
your
the slave and it
understanding.
depends on the
But
culture.
you have a false understanding. What make a claim? What are you saying?
That it depends on the culture and it depends on the status of the slave. So, like indentured servitudes would have more rights than those that were just legit chattel slaves. There were some cultures that even let slaves have voices, and when it came to
Okay, time out,
courts,
time out.
whereas
I don't mean to be rude, and I'm not just trying to cut you off, but I'm gonna cut you off because we're not talking about other cultures. We're only talking about what Jesus and or God the Father instructed the people of Israelites to do. I don't give a fuck about the other countries and the rest of the world because they didn't believe in the God that I believed in, sir. So we're not talking about
but
them
we're
at all
talking about what
whatsoever.
slavery was like in that time period versus
Oh,
today's
but
modern thing.
we're
Was
talking
is
about
that
Bib.
was
Time
your
out, sir.
point?
Time out.
That was your
Okay, we're
point.
not talking about. We are not talking about just slavery in that time period. We're talking about slavery in that time period under the eyes of God, because I said the morality in the Bible. You feel me? The Bible don't we don't care about what was going on outside of the stuff that was happening in our Bible. So honestly, bringing up slavery in the time or what was going on around the rest of the world literally is irrelevant because I'm not debunking the rest of the
Okay.
world's immoral slavery.
Okay, then next time you bring up a point like that, I just want to address it. Now, if you just want to stick to the Bible, then God is instructing in his law in Leviticus 25:44 through 46, that his people are allowed to go into other nations and buy people and own them as property, or they could buy these people from the strangers that live among them. So we see
Yes,
that God is.
under the exact same con- contract that the people of Israel were under. So it's the indentured
No,
servitude. The only difference between people that weren't Hebrew and the Egyptians and the Hebrews were that there's this thing called the year of Jubilee. Maybe you know about it, maybe you don't,
I do.
right? Okay, what's the year of Jubilee?
The
Please
year of
explain it to
Jubilee
me.
is a feast that they had every 50 years where they would let their Hebrew indentured servants go free, not their
Yes. Okay,
non-Hebrew slaves. Their non-Hebrew slaves
let me
were
elaborate on
their
that. Let me
slaves and their
elaborate on that.
property forever. So the year of Jubilee does not count when we're talking
Let
about
me
the non-Hebrew slaves that God allowed
let
them to
me
have.
finish speaking, sir. You explained it. Now let me finish speaking. The year of
I
Jubilee,
would love to let you finish
it
speaking, but
goes on.
can you give me the same mutual respect, because you've cut me off repeatedly while I've been trying to
I
just
I,
say something.
I understand. I was shooting for a point.
Okay,
I let
thank you.
you explain Jubilee, and I wanted to expand on your explanation. Right. So after you freed the people who are in debt to you, right? Not only are they free, but whatever lands and properties that you obtained from them, guess what? It goes back to them, sir. So you
Hmm.
can have, yeah, so you can have, I could sell you all of my land and me and my family for a set amount of years. So long as if Jubilee comes around before my contract is up, guess what? I get all my land back. I own myself. You still have to pay me. So that's the indentured servitude. Now my question to you is, why would the Jubilee apply to people who don't have land there, sir. So obviously, the Jubilee wouldn't apply to Egyptians because they're in Israel. They didn't own any land, sir. They were foreigners, right? So they gave you different means to give these slaves rights. You feel me? And humanize them, okay? So basically, if you go back to, and this goes back to the not Egyptians, the people of Israel at the time, the Hebrews. The Hebrews had a very strict code. There were certain things you could do and certain things you couldn't do to slaves, right? One of these things is you could beat, the atheists like to say, oh, you were allowed to beat your slaves into an inch of their life so long as they survive 2 days. Have you heard that before?
I know what passage that's referring to. Yes.
Okay. So the issue with this passage is that directly before that quote, it gives you regulations that if you punch, if you strike a servant and it costs them their eye, then you are to let them free for the cost of their eye. If you punch them in their tooth and they lose a tooth, then you are to let them free for the cost of their tooth. Guess what? It's not you just let them free and they're free to go. No, whatever contract that you made with that servant, guess what? You just whatever the contract is, I will work for you for this set amount of years and you will pay me this set amount. Well, you just voided that. Now you have to pay me and I get to leave, sir. So guess what? If you put your hands on a slave or you abuse them, even if they didn't die, right? Because God tells you that if he was to die, you'll be punished. And the word punished there, it's in English is punished, but it's often and always referred to as put to death. So it's not just you'll be punished, you'll be
Not
put to
always,
death.
but it is the main definition for it. Yes. But no, not always.
Right, you will be put to death. Okay, so why would he say, okay, well, if they do survive the 2 days or whatever the case may be, they do survive. Um, you will not be punished. Do you know why? Because yes, you're not going to be put to death because they didn't die, but you'll be punished in another way because that contract that you made with them, guess what? It's null and void. You got to pay them and you have to let them free, sir. So of course, no, I'm not going to kill you. Guess what? You already voided that servant's free now. There's no need for you to be punished because you're going to get the natural punishment because you follow these other laws. And the other law says if I treat my servant unfairly, then I void his contract and I must pay that man. So what is that not inherently fair? What's inherently wrong about that? I'm just confused.
I'm confused what this has to do with slavery.
How does this not have to do with slavery?
So okay, so here's the
Your
thing. The
issue is
passage that you're
owning
talking
another
about
human
with
being.
hold on, hold on. The passage that you're referring to, Exodus 21, is referring to the Hebrew indentured servants. We see this from the very beginning of the passage and onward. It's
Are you going
talking
to
about
ask
the
if this
relations
applies
from
to the Egyptians?
the Egyptians don't have anything to do with this part of the story anymore.
Okay, can I tell you why it does?
Well,
Because that's extremely disingenuous of you, sir. It's extremely disingenuous of you, sir.
the Egyptians, they left Egypt already.
Deuteronomy 10, verse 17 through 19. God shows no partiality, right? He explains this, and these are like my gisted notes, so I can't give you word for word verbatim. This is important. God shows no partiality because he's explaining to you that under your eyes, bro, that they're Egyptians. And under my eyes, they're Egyptians and we're Hebrews. But under the eyes of God, we're all just humans. There's no partiality. He don't give a fuck that they're Egyptians he don't care. The same rules that applied to those Hebrews applied to the Egyptians outside of the Jubilee thing because obviously that doesn't apply to them. But the way that you treated your slaves and the way that you had to deal with your slaves did apply to the Egyptians. Please debunk it.
That's again not relevant to our Exodus 21 passage, which again I was trying to answer and you interrupted me. So can I answer it, or are you going to just continue to be very rude?
Uh, You can answer it. I
Per-
might continue to
Perfect.
be rude.
So, which is kind of sad because I'm not being rude to you, buddy. But all right. So Exodus 21, we see that we're talking about indentured servants, specifically Hebrews. This is about Hebrew relations to Hebrews. So when we see how we're to treat your fellow Hebrew servant, if you're a man, you serve 6 years, you go free in the seventh year. If you're a woman, you can be sold by your father, and you'll be married to whoever he sells you to. Maybe you'll get a chance to get redeemed if they don't like you, but you could also give a family to your indentured servant, your male indentured servant, and then if he wants to keep his family, they're not his because remember they belong to you. So he would then have to make some kind of weird
Okay,
confession
you're
that he
reading
loves
it out
you.
of context, sir. So I'm going to cut you off. Are you ready? Alexa, stop. So
I,
that's why
I, I
that's
don't
why I
know
kind
how
of
it's
get
out
rude
of
because you're
context
reading.
when that's what it's there. What did I
You're reading
say
it
that
out
was
of
out of
context.
context?
So I'm gonna explain it to you because you said because he owns them too. A fucking course he owns them too. Because the only
Hmm.
reason
But
that he
but
would
but women couldn't go
let me
free. That was
finish.
the
Let
whole
me
point,
finish
right?
because you have a misunderstanding. So let me make you understand. He says, if you come to me as a man alone, you feel
Hmm.
me? You can leave as a man alone. If you come to me married, when your contract is up, you will leave with family. Now that you met here on my fucking plantation, you don't get to say, I married this girl, my time is up, but she still owes you 4 years via her contract, so she's coming with me. No, sir, that's not how that works. So that's why they were offered the option to be pierced by the ear and stay longer. Because yes, you might find love where you're living at the time, right? But that just because you marry that girl doesn't mean that she doesn't still own that she isn't still owned by that owner at the time. She's under a contract. She still
She's
owes
not
you
under a contract.
2 3 years.
Women
Yes,
were
she is, sir.
forever. Women were
You can
forever, and
believe that's your opinion. Yes, she is,
that's
sir.
why in verse 6 it says that after he's pierced, he will serve him for the rest of his life, because his wife will never
Because
be
he
able to leave. His
chose
wife
to.
is a servant forever. Only the Hebrew men
No,
got the
sir.
chance to go free.
No, no, sir. That is inherently false. It's
I'm
inherently
sorry,
false.
you're
You're
incorrect, but
spreading a
that's
false connotation. It's false. That's
only
false.
only the men got to
Women,
go free.
women. Please show me where it says that, and until you do, I'm going to end this conversation because that's false. That is
There,
false.
why would you end the conversation when I've just read to you what it says and you still keep cutting me off before I can even finish
Because
my original
you read
answer
what
to
it
your
said, but
question?
nowhere have you proved that it
Because it says when you
identifies
buy
men
a
alone.
male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but on the seventh he shall go out a free person without debt. When we get to women, it's about when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she
Sure.
shall not go out as the male slaves do. Why can't she go out? Because she's a woman. She is to be a wife of some sort. So this man
Sir, you're
owns
not
this woman,
understanding, sir. You're
and
not
he
understanding. Again, I'm
gives
trying to
his
make you
female slave.
understand, and you just want to keep going. The situation
I'm
is
because I'm trying
not.
to answer
He's
your
not. He's not.
question.
Listen, you're not listening. He's not saying the girl can
You're
never
not
leave.
listening.
He's saying that the girl cannot leave because you married her, bro. That is what he's cutting out. Because in the statement before,
That's not
he
what it
says if you
says.
come a married time out, sir. He says if you come a married man, you can leave with your wife and your belongings. So he has to and then he has to then elaborate and say without obviously he didn't directly say it, but if you are to meet an indentured servant here and marry her, let's say you only have a year left, but she has 3 years left. You don't have the right to take her with you. You just don't. So you can either wait for her time to come up, one option. Two, you can go under another contract to make the timelines add up more, or you can just you can forever live with or be owned by that person. These were the options given to the man that comes and finds a family there on the, I guess what you would somewhat of a plantation, I guess is the only terminology I could think to use.
Can
But
can you give me those verses?
It's all there.
Because it doesn't
You're
say
reading
that.
them. You're
You're
reading
making
them.
shit
You're
up,
reading
bro.
them. You're just not reading them word for word, bar for bar.
No,
You know the
you made that
verses.
up
They're in the
because that's
exact
not in
same
there.
verses. The same verses you're reading, I'm reading. I'm just fully interpreting them. You're picking the parts that
There.
you
Okay.
want to
Can you show me which verse
coordinate with.
exactly where it says you can wait for her contract to be up?
There is no verse exactly. I asked
Exactly.
you to
See,
show me the
exactly.
time out, sir. I asked you to show me the exact verse
Yes, in
that says
verse 2 and verse
only men
7,
can
we'll
leave.
talk about how men can go free in the seventh year,
Ish.
but women are not
Okay,
to go free like men.
that is not the statement, sir. I said, where's the statement that says only men? This is giving you the condition for a man to leave.
And
It
then in
isn't
verse
telling you that
7, it
only
tells
men
you
get to
that,
leave. Okay,
and
I'm
then
done
it
talking
tells
to
you
you.
in verse 7
I'm
that you
sorry.
shall not go free. It tells you in verse
I'm
7
sorry.
that you shall not go free.
He doesn't want. He's not understanding what I'm saying. He asked me, "Can you tell me exactly where it directly says that?" I asked him to prior to that. I asked him to directly tell me where it says only men get to leave. Women can never leave. It never says women can never leave. It just does not say that. You gotta think outside the box. I know that y'all have like squared off fucking brain cells, but it's scary thinking how your brains work. You want it to say that only men get to, that's how you interpreted the verse, bro. Nowhere does, anywhere else in the Bible does Jesus teach that, promote that, nothing. So why would this one verse say, yeah, the girl's got to stay a slave forever? No, that's not what that's meaning, bro. You're interpreting that wrong. Show me the verse that says men can leave, women cannot. I just want to know where it says that. Give me the verse. I'm not running away. I'm here to have an open conversation, and he's closed-minded. Why would I talk to him? No, sir. You see, he told me, and then I explained, and in my explanation, the text wasn't hyper specific in language, and he says, where does it directly say that? Well, it didn't directly say what the fuck you just said, sir. So why? So it's a hypocritical. He's a hypocrite. Why am I finna sit here and argue with a hypocrite? He asked me, provide me the script where it says that word for word. Okay, I asked him to do that right before he even asked me that. I asked him to do the same thing. Tell me where it says that word for word. It doesn't say it. And then he asked me, okay, well, where does your interpretation say that word for word? It doesn't. It's my interpretation. The fuck? It's not even an interpretation, it's an understanding, bro. Like you gotta understand, like you can't read, I feel like. I'm going to let him back up, right? He says women are for life, verse 7. So I'm going to want him to read verse 2 through verse 10. If he's not prepared to read verse 2 through verse 1 through verse 10, I don't want to have this conversation with him. So he has it. I just want him to read it word for word, verse 1 through 10.
Yeah, I got no issue reading the 10 verses. After that, though, do you mind if we actually get to the slavery topic instead of just the indentured servitude?
Sure.
Perfect. All right, so Exodus 21. These are the ordinances that you shall set before them. When you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years. But in the seventh he shall go out a free person, without debt, If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the
Can you
slave
pause?
declares,
Do you mind pausing, or am I being rude?
no, no, you're
How do
fine,
you
perfectly fine.
how can you interpret what he's saying right there for me? Like, how do you take that? Because what how I take it as, if he comes in single, he leaves single. If he comes in married, he leaves married. But if he comes here and he marries somebody here, he doesn't get to just leave when his contract is up. No, they have to stay because they're under a different contract than he is, sir. Is that correct? Am I interpreting that correct?
Yeah, I interpret it the way that if he comes in single, he leaves single. If he comes in married, he leaves married. If he gets in and he gets married while there, because it says the master gives him a wife, it says that when his time is up, that he can go, but the wife and the children, any children that they have, cannot go. So that's why we see what he can do to stay with his family. To stay with his family, he has to make this declaration that he loves his master, his wife, and children, and he will not go out as a free person. And then his master takes him to the doorpost and pierces his ear, and that man serves with his family forever.
Right. So you do understand that it's not the specific women and children that don't have rights, right? So it's not that they're still Hebrews, right? So you have to these are things you have to remember, because he's not going to say he's not going you, bro. You're going to need specific words for him to say, and somebody else is going to need other words to interpret a certain message. So he's not going to give everybody the exact verbiage that they want to hear. But if you understand everything as a whole, and you're not just reading this right here, right? You're not just reading one verse. You already understand that these women are Hebrews, right?
Most likely, yes.
And God shows no partiality. He don't care if you're a man or a woman. So under Hebrew law, after your contract is up, you get to leave. Now, just because he didn't directly say that doesn't inherently mean that it's false. There's laws and things in place already that he already made you understand, so he doesn't have to continue to make you understand every freaking thing. So he's not telling you, he's not re-uttering, oh, again, just so you know, after 6 years or 7 years, you get to go. No, now he's telling you, if you meet someone here, they're not under the same contract as you just because you got married. Their contract doesn't equate. They will still be here under their contract. He doesn't have to say it because it's implied. He already gave you the laws of the nation. If they're Hebrews, how long can they stay, sir?
The Hebrew men would serve 6 years and go free on the seventh.
Okay.
As stated in verse 2. Now, did you want me to continue
Do you also agree that
men?
Do you also agree that man is humanity? Like there's never there's
Depends
not
on the
too much.
context.
There's not too much distinction, though. There's been oftentimes there's not a distinction.
It depends on the context. Would you not agree that it depends on the context whether man means human or man?
But I find that oftentimes.
So the context here, when you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve with you 6 years. And then it tells you that, depending on the status, marriage status of that man to a woman, a wife, and having children. So we're very clearly talking about man as in a man, a human male. We're not talking about humankind here. And that's why when we get to the very next passage, again, reading the whole thing and not cherry picking, when a man sells his daughter, now we're talking about women. She shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt unfairly with her. If he designates her for one of his sons, he shall deal with her then as a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish the food, clothing, or marital rights of the first wife. So the first few verses, we see it pertaining to men. This is the group of verses that we see pertaining to
And did
women.
you just understand what he was saying as far as women?
Yeah, I'm going to explain here.
That they're not just some sex slave. They're not just some pure piece of property. They're still to be 100% treated as a human being. You're not to just go in there and do with them as you will. If you are to give them, if you are to make one your bride, first and foremost, marrying one would elevate their social status and give them more rights. And under the law of God, you can't just marry a girl then divorce her and just do this like repeated cycle with different women. It doesn't work like that. Once you marry a girl, you're binding as one for eternity. So you're offering that woman more rights than saying if you were to give her to your son, well, she's not just your son's slave. That is now your daughter for all intents. Like, it's getting rid of the property piece. It's giving, all he's doing there is giving human rights to women. Because again, he is not, this is what you got to get out of your head. He's not promoting slavery. What he's doing is regulating slavery. He does the
Yeah,
same
I think
thing.
that's still terrible.
Time out. He does the same thing with divorce. What does God say about divorce? Do you know?
Yeah, that it was not the will of God from the beginning
He
that people
says
would get
verbatim,
divorced.
I hate divorce.
Yeah, it wasn't
But what
that
is
he states that was
time
not
out,
his
can I
original
finish?
intention.
Okay, exactly. It doesn't matter. I hate divorce, sir. It's a verbatim statement. But what does
Okay,
he also
where
do?
where does it say
He
he hates
also,
slavery?
time out, you're not letting me finish. He then provides you regulations for divorce. He doesn't just do away with it. Oh, you are not to get divorced. He says, okay, if you get divorced, this is how you go about it. This is how you go about living after. These are the reasons as to why you should be getting divorced, or that would initiate this said divorce. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to up and say one day, oh, I want a divorce." So he says, "I hate divorce," but he still offers you he regulates it as well, because it's something that's going to happen here on earth. So slavery, again, he doesn't have to sit here and say, I hate slavery. Everything he's saying is giving these slaves, because for all intents and purposes, indentured servant, I don't, whatever, obviously you don't care what we call it, they're slaves, they're a
No,
piece of
actually,
property.
I do. That's why I said, could we actually talk about the slaves instead of the
It's
indentured
it's
servants? Because there's a difference.
it's all gonna pull full circle, because this is the thing that's gonna bite you in the butt, right? God shows no partiality. So you believe that there's a difference between Egyptians and Hebrews, and I'm telling
No,
you
I'm saying there's a
that
difference between indentured
listen,
servants and slavery.
and, okay, cool. That's it's still a regulation, and I'm here telling you that he's not regulating indentured servitude. He's regulating slavery. Even in these verses that we're talking about now, he's regulating the slavery, not indentured servitude. And he's trying to get rid of some of the harshest parts about slavery that we know. And if you bring up anything about the other nations, he tells you, he speaks specifically, where is it? Right here in 1 Timothy verse 110. This is not verbatim. None of this is verbatim. This is just I generalized. Do not listen to none of this stuff on this side. Please go read these verses for yourself. But in 1 Timothy 110, kidnappers mentioned, it's wrong. You are not to kidnap. And even now, even though he's saying you can take people from the other nation, it's not saying you can just go and kidnap them, sir, because that is a crime punishable by death. Period, point blank. It's not. So I know, I've read the verses. I understand what it sounds like. But when you dig deeper and you understand the book as a whole, it is not saying verbatim what you think it is saying, sir, because there's already laws put in place to get rid of this stuff. I can't just go to a neighboring country and just take you away. The other
But you put it in a
Israelites
prisoner of
would
war
punish
context,
me.
right?
the other Israelites would punish me. That was against the law, sir. Kidnapping was against the law. So when I went to these other nations, they were brought on as indentured servitudes. They had contracts. They were treated just like the other Hebrews, sir.
So, all right, we can get to that in a second. Do
I
you
thought
think
that's
that
what you
there's
wanted to
any?
get to now.
Do you think that you brought up so many different things? So I would like to address them in order. Um, do you think that there's any valid reason for divorce?
That's my opinion. I'm not here to talk about opinions. I'm not here. That's my opinion. Yes, I believe there's valid reasons for divorce. Infidelity, the ones that God said are reasons for divorce.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, basically if there's like yeah,
Cheating.
cheating, adultery, things like that.
Yes.
Do you think abuse is a reason to get divorced? Because God doesn't mention that.
I think that God mentions abuse in other topics, and it's punishable by death. So I don't think he has to mention it. And he doesn't have to sit here. If he did that for everything, the book would be longer, sir. So he already spoke about abuse before, so he doesn't have to bring it up within the context of marriage, because abuse as a fucking, what's the word, as a concept has already been brought up and dealt with, sir. So what are you saying?
Okay, so you don't think that there's any reason to say that you could get a divorce for abuse because if there's abuse,
Yes, you
the
can get
abusive
divorced for
person
abuse. Yes, you
should
can.
be
Yes, you
put to
can.
death.
Yes, you can get divorced because of abuse. Yes. And I think it would be under what God has taught me,
Okay,
from what I've learned from God.
okay.
Abuse is unholy. It's not right.
And what do you think is appropriate reasons to have slavery?
It depends on your definition of slavery, sir. But
People
what are
owning
appropriate
people,
reasons?
people owning
What
people
are
as
I will
property.
tell you right now. I will tell you. I'll answer your question. I'm sorry. Sometimes I say shit and I don't really mean it. I'll just answer it. What is an appropriate condition? Appropriate condition is I'm so broke as a homeless man here in America that you, Elon Musk, you have so much money. Can I sell myself as a piece of property under these conditions? You can't abuse me. You can't do these certain things. Can I sell myself as a servant to you for this set amount of time, for this set amount of money?
That's not
I
slavery.
think okay, so I'm telling you. So it's based on I said originally it's based on your definition of slavery. Your definition of slavery did not occur, sir.
So
It
in
didn't occur.
so Leviticus 25:44 through 46, we see that people, the
Don't tell me
Israelites,
what they see.
are
Read it. Don't
allowed
tell me what
to.
they see. Time out. Don't tell me what we
All right, all
see.
right, all right, all
Read
right.
it word for word, bar for bar.
As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over another with harshness. So we see that people are buying and owning people and as legal
Okay.
property, and they are passing them on to their children as inheritance.
I'm a, I mean, I can sit
That
here
is
and
slavery.
look for. Come out. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, it is sad.
I was looking at it. Here you go. Would you like to go and read these? Because I don't have a Bible in front of me, so I can't do it, or I would. But from the gist that I got
I
when I
think it's
did read,
interesting I have a
these
Bible and you don't, but okay.
I have one where I'm outside. Okay, sir. Do you want me to show you how quickly I can grab one?
Well,
It's
I'm just
literally in
saying
the
I just
living
can't
room
imagine doing a live like
of
this.
my
I'm
house.
just being so unprepared. But So what do you want?
It's not
Deuteronomy
about me being
21
unprepared.
or
You know why?
Deuteronomy
You know why
23?
I don't need one sitting here in my face? Because you as an atheist, you have the damning verses. You have the ones that you specifically want to talk about. So I'm going to tell you to specifically read them, and I'm going to interpret them within the text as I know it. So I don't need to sit here and be looking at them. I'm going to ask you to read what verse you're talking about verbatim, and then I'm going to give you context because clearly you don't freaking have it.
Okay, so you want me to have the verse to, or you want me to have the book to read the verse to you that you're going to explain the context to me, even though you don't have the book.
I don't need you have a problem, so I'm going to ask you what's your problem. I'm going to ask you to read it verbatim. I'm not going to ask you your
So, so,
interpretation. I'm going to ask
so,
you
so the
to read it
passage that I
verbatim.
brought up, it's people buying and owning people as legal property. How is that not what I'm referring to as slavery? People buying
Okay,
and owning
sir. And
people
he
as
also
property.
tells you that owning. He also speaks on being a harsh owner and all these other things in other passages. He also tells you as a fellow Israelite that if me as an Egyptian, right, if I was to run away from a slave for any reason, really, guess what? As an Israelite, under certain laws, you have to pay me refuge. Go read these verses, gang. Can you please? I know it's ironic that you have one I don't. Do you mind going and reading these verses? I'm also
What is
not
that?
as like
Deuteronomy 23, 15, 16?
I'm also not as quick as like going able to find them. Some like oftentimes the atheist community have like college degrees in religion. I just don't.
Don't worry,
So
I
like
don't.
y'all find the verses, y'all be finding the verses way faster than me as well. So that's kind of why I just
Well,
do it like that.
it's usually, at least those of us that don't have college degrees like me and stuff, it's usually just because we read it. So we know where things are. We know how to flip there faster.
That's fine.
So
Maybe you don't have an intellectual delay though. So
Deuteronomy. Oh, actually, I
I feel
do.
like
I actually do.
that
I
wasn't
struggle.
fair.
Trust me, I struggle. But don't you worry. Don't let that
I
stop
said
me.
that wasn't fair too.
So all right. So Deuteronomy
Right.
23. What is this? 15. You said 15, 16. Yeah, you shall not return to their owner slaves who have escaped to you from their owners. They shall reside with you in your midst, and in any place they choose, in any one of your towns, wherever they please. You shall not oppress them. That's great. Why did God disobey His own system then? Why did Paul do? Why did Paul disobey it?
Sir, because he didn't because first and foremost, what he's telling you he's not telling you because it's painting a picture that maybe God doesn't think slavery is okay. Maybe he's just regulating it because you're gonna do it anyway. So maybe he's trying to give he's trying to force you with his laws to give these people as many rights as possible. It's going to happen around the world. Even if you as an Israelite don't choose to own slaves, if another one does that holds different values, maybe because again, Christians, you know how many there's over 3,000 denominations amongst Christianity. So
Right.
obviously people have different opinions of different scripts and so there are obviously going to be Israelites that don't have slaves. So God
So
is kind of painting a picture that people are going to do what they do anyways, but I'm going to regulate it, right?
okay,
So
so
by
you're
me
saying that
regulating it,
God put this in here to show us, or to show us that even though people are going to do what they do, that it is His will that slavery is bad, but also like if a slave is running away, you should never have them return to their masters, right?
it's the same thing that he does with divorce, sir. That's kind of what I want you to understand. He says I hate divorce, so he's strictly against divorce. But he says he gives you means and regulations as to going about committing divorce.
Right, but we're saying that God's ideal here is that if a slave runs away, you ought not send them back, correct?
Right. And you should not oppress them. You should give them a piece of your land. Treat them like a piece of they get to pick what piece of property they want on your land that they feel the most comfortable. You don't just get to say, "Hey, you get this little shed over here." Nah, bro. They
So
get to say,
if this is how God
"Nah.
feels, if this is how
I
God
like it over there.
feels,
It's a little
if this is how
That's your
God
opinion,
feels,
sir.
then why did He
That's how
send
you
Hagar
feel.
back?
No, that's how you feel.
No, if this is how God
How you
feels
feel.
about runaway slaves, then why did He send a runaway slave back to her master?
And what I again, I don't have
In Genesis.
I don't have
Hagar
I don't
runs
have
away from her master Sarah and
I don't
Abraham.
have I can't give you specifics for every single scenario, but I'm painting you a picture that, and you continue to move the goalposts.
No, I'm saying
telling
you
you.
paint me a picture, but that picture is contradictory to the Bible, and so therefore I'm saying
Okay,
that this doesn't
so
make sense
if in one
because it
case, if
doesn't
in one
work with
case
the
that I'm
nature
not
of God in the
knowledgeable, I'm
Bible.
telling you right now, in the case that you're talking about, I'm not knowledgeable of. So I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, if I because I know for sure because I did it with this whole slavery thing in under fucking 2 hours. As soon as I do go and find this direct instance that you're talking about, and I do research on the context around it all, it is not what you're going to paint it out to be, sir. It is. There's probably a bigger message being there. Yes, he might have sent a slave to go back to their master, maybe to serve a greater purpose, maybe not to just directly be a slave and be beaten. Maybe it was to for that slave owner to get some realization. I don't know the passage that you're talking about, so I don't know the reasons behind it. But I'm telling you that the common theme behind the entire Bible is one. There aren't many contradictions, if any, and that you're not going to take one instance and understand what he's saying about slavery in itself or
Okay.
any particular topic. You have to read the book in its entirety and understand, okay, does God think that slavery is right or wrong? You have to make that decision for yourself. And if you're taking these one verses, him
I
regulating
don't think
slavery, I
God
think
sees
that
it as right or wrong.
I find that extremely unfair.
But the passage that I'm referring to, so that you can put it in your notes for later, is Genesis 16, and in it you'll see that Hagar bears Abraham a son. Now, the reason this happened was because Sarah was unable to have kids, and she was like, "Hey, Abraham, you need a son." So she gave her slave Hagar to Abraham. Abraham went in, had relations with her. As she got
Oh, I,
pregnant, Hagar ran into the desert. She ran away from them, and God sent an angel to her to send her back and was like, "Hey, don't worry, your son will be born. You'll call him Ishmael. He'll be, a father to a great nation, all this stuff." And so she goes back at the will of God via this angel. So here we
okay.
see a slave that ran away, and God Himself sent her back. So clearly,
So
this is not how
time out, though.
God feels
Time out.
about
Not.
slavery. It really depends on Him and how He feels
I
given
feel
that
like
certain
again, can
situation.
you go back because now that you read it, I have heard that story. I just don't. I literally heard it in the video that I was watching about this specific topic yesterday. It just wasn't. It just didn't spark a major point to me, so I just kind of let it be. But I do remember somebody, the dude that I was listening to, refer to that exact story,
Yeah,
and
so it's
nothing that
it's
you just
Genesis chapter 16.
nothing you just said, sir, as far as him directing her to go back, there's a big difference between him forcing her to go back first and foremost, because he could have forced her. He could have sent men to go and force her. And there's a difference in forcing her and sending an angel and telling, damn near giving her a prophecy and damn near proving to her that God is real. Because time out, if an angel comes and talks to me, I'm sorry, but that is as proof as I need. And the one thing that God doesn't really offer much of here on earth is proof, right? So if a God was to send an angel to me while I'm running away, and said that my son was going to be a king and yada yada yada, I'm sorry, but I would have went back as well. And he did. And again, he could have forced her. He told her to, giving her a directive, but I guess under the context that of the story that you told me. But again, she had the choice to not do that, right? Right. So
I
inherently,
never said forced her. I just said we see that God sent an angel to tell her to go back, and I can read you
right.
that verse.
Okay.
So it is clearly not God's desire that
Telling.
all slaves be able to run away at all times. We see Paul do the same thing with Onesimus, where Onesimus came and ran away, came across Paul, and Paul sends him back to his master, but with a letter to his master Philemon,
Yep, and he
basically saying,
refers to
"Hey,
that
Onesimus is
exact
a Christian
same
now, and
story.
as a fellow Christian, he shouldn't be a
And
slave. But he should be a servant for me for better things. You should give him to me. And so we see this happening again, where if this is God's will and desire, we see God Himself going against it, and we see Paul also going against it. And
what
it
did he
seems
go
like it's not
against?
really a big deal because
No,
it's never
it's
pointed out. And so I wonder why, because it seems
wasn't
like a big
pointed.
deal.
How is it not pointed out? It's in the book.
Because
Everything that's in the book is pointed out. It doesn't have to say, "Hey, this right here is important." Everything in that book is important, and that's and maybe that is the thing that you're missing, is that everything in there is important. So you can't take one verse and think, "Oh, he means this," but then he's saying that. No, you have to take it, every single piece of. You got to take the Genesis. You got to take the story you
hmm
just told. You got to take the Leviticus. You got to take, and you also have to take the interpretation. Not, you don't have to take the interpretation. That is blasphemy. But you should be open to hearing a Christian's viewpoint of some of these passages that you're saying, because again, I
absolutely.
think, actually, I'm gonna shoot you a follow, and I'm gonna send you a link to the exact YouTube video that I watched last night, and he talks about the first story you brought up, the second story you just brought up, and every single verse that you see here, and he just elaborates on them so much better than me, bro. And I think that after just the fact that you are damn near verbatim quoting the same stories that he told, I think that once he gives you some of the background from someone that's far more knowledgeable of the Gospels and the Word than I am, I think that you'll understand that, okay, he is definitely not promoting slavery or endorsing slavery. He is just providing
He's condoning it.
a sort of
Well, actually, I
regulation.
I wouldn't even say condoning, because condoning is to allow something that is immoral. I don't think that the God of the Bible recognizes slavery as immoral.
And I don't think under the context that I kind of just explained that it is. If me, even from, like, again, if I can get you to hear and that understanding that kidnapping, it doesn't matter where you're from, bro. It's punishable by death. God is, and he shows no partiality. So it doesn't matter if you're from Egypt. It doesn't matter if you're from Asia. It doesn't matter if you're from America. The act of kidnapping is punishable by death. So these Egyptians, or the non-Hebrews, they were not taken there by force, sir. They had to have been brought by some contract under the laws of God. Maybe, yeah, people were being
No, they
taken
were
by force
bought.
back. Huh?
They were bought. It says that they were purchased.
Purchased, but do you understand what that means? It's not from another human, though. I can
Yes.
buy you. It's through a contract, sir. That's what I'm saying. I swear to God, I'm gonna say, maybe you should really stop listening to me and just wait for my link that I'm gonna send you, bro. And I'm probably gonna end the live because, or no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm probably gonna end the live. There's only one or two people that have been requesting. And you should watch that, because he just speaks on it so much better than I can, bro. All I'm genuinely doing is regurgitating what I learned from listening to him and reading it from myself, because that's what I sat there and did last night. I went to these verses and I read them for myself. That's why all I wanted you to do was read them for yourself, because when I did, and when he was interpreting the ways of the world back then, because I didn't have extreme historical knowledge, I did know that there was a difference between slavery and indentured servitude for sure. But when under the guidelines of God, and if you go, well, obviously 2 + 2 = 4, he doesn't have to tell you that you can't go over there and kidnap them, though. You can buy them. Okay, what is buying them? Kidnapping. He says, he also says this. Where is it? It's somewhere here. Oh, it's all the way at the top. I'm gonna go to my notes. Sorry. He says, if you kidnap, sell, or you're found with it in your hand, somebody kidnapped with your hand, it's punishable by death. So you couldn't.
But you can buy.
purchase some under the laws of God. You couldn't purchase somebody from someone that has been kidnapped and say, "Oh, I didn't kidnap them. They freaking somebody else did. I just bought them." Under the eyes of God, you're still guilty and will be punished by death. So no, you this being bought idea, you're buying them from themselves under a
So
contract. I will sell myself to you for this amount of years for this amount of money. And if that amount of years is forever, then that's just what the contract is. That's not, and some of that has to do with the year of Jubilee and that they're going to go back to their land. They don't inherit any land. But again, if these people are being treated bad or unfairly, all they have to do is run away, right? And go to a neighboring person, and it's their duty to help them and give them a piece of land and not oppress these people. So there was so many systems put up so that the modern day slavery would have never been able to happen because one, it was fueled by kidnapping that was punishable by death, all forms of kidnapping. So I can't, as a white man, go kidnap somebody from another country and then come sell them to an Israelite. I can't do that because an Israelite would still be punished by death because the property would be found in their hand. You can't buy another human outside of the laws that were already constructed with the Israelites. So if you want to condone in this slavery, this is how you do it in Israel. And you still, these rules would still apply to you if you go somewhere the F else. You still can't go over there and kidnap people. You just can't do it under the eyes of God. So your definition verbatim of slavery isn't in the Bible. He doesn't promote it at all whatsoever because slavery, like you said, is well, I guess the ownership of another human, but being bought from another human, I would pour more towards slavery. What we're talking about is indentured servitude, bro. 100%, like no doubt, under the laws of God. Me as an Israelite, again, I can't just go to Egypt and say, yeah, bro.
Under the laws of God, he has both slavery and indentured servitude. It's slavery for non-Hebrews, and it's indentured servitude for the Hebrews themselves.
Okay, even if the terminology changed, the way that even the way that you treat and handle said property is still holds. So you still have to treat them as an Israelite. However you treat them, you have to treat them the same. The only
No,
reason that the
actually, it's
7
very
years
specific at the
the
end
only
of.
reason that the 7 year and the Jubilee doesn't apply is because they have no land to go back to. And they were so poor that they had nothing before. And everything back then is damn near accounted for. They can't just go find a piece of land and say, hey, this is mine now.
It's actually very specific, both in Leviticus 25 specifically, in two separate parts, the difference between Hebrew indentured servitudes and your non-Hebrew slaves. The difference in how you treat them, how much you pay them, if any at all, but very specifically referring to your passages when it comes to kidnapping, because I wanted to address this, was I agree with you. God is regulating slavery here. Just like how I cannot go out and steal a PlayStation from Walmart, but I could buy one and own one legally, even if I bought it at a pawn shop. And let's say it was stolen. Let's say the police show up at my house and say, we found out you're in possession of a stolen PlayStation, and I give them a receipt saying I bought it at this pawn shop. I hope it helps you find the guy. Did I do anything wrong? Am I going to jail? No, because the person that did the illegal thing was whoever stole it. God made it very clear, yes, you cannot obtain a slave by means of kidnapping, but you can go by the legal means, which is you buy them from the place that they're already at. You do not. It is not up to you to go and just steal a person, unless it's like a prisoner of war situation. Then yes, you can't kidnap those people.
This is where I think that you shut your mind down and you just stop trying to understand me. So I'm gonna say it. I swear I'm not being.
Sir, I promise I am doing my best to understand you, but I also hope that you would give me the same courtesy of trying to understand my position.
I do. I 100%.
So then why did I just let you talk for a long period of time uninterrupted, and yet you cut me off?
Because the statement you just said completely contradicted what I just said, and it proved to me that you either
It
didn't understand what I told you or you just were not listening. So I wanted to repeat what I was saying.
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand your
And the
position. Now
rest
I
of
am
it,
explaining my position,
but the
and
rest of it is
our
based
next
on
thing
something that's
forward is
already
is
flawed.
trying to determine which position makes more sense with what the text is saying, and I think
But
that mine does, and I can explain why.
your position is directly false because it's based on an understanding that we're not there yet. You can't you started with you damn near said they can go to another country where this act is legal and buy another human. I'm
No,
telling
it's
you,
legal in their country to go to other nations and buy other people, or to the strangers that live among them and
and
buy
this is
from those
and this is
people.
what I'm telling you, that it's not, you're not understanding. So can you please let me elaborate? It says, let me, damn, it's just, let me see if I can get a better screenshot.
Maybe it would be better to just go and grab the actual book itself.
Exodus 21 verse 16.
Yep. Whoever kidnaps a
You,
person, whether that person has been sold or is still held in possession, shall be put to death.
can you read it verbatim for me? Or my
I
Bible's right
just
now.
did. I just
I'm in
did.
the house now.
I just read it verbatim, word for word.
You cannot kidnap.
hmm
You cannot purchase someone who has been kidnapped, sir.
it doesn't say that actually.
Period. Okay.
It just
And
says that
that's our
whoever kidnaps a
misinterpretation.
person, whether they've already sold them or is still in their possession. So let's say that I kidnapped Chris and I sold him to Xavier, but the police catch me and they have evidence that I kidnapped Chris and I sold him. I can still be prosecuted for that because I still did it. I am still going to face those legal consequences. But if Chris ends up across the ocean at God knows where and ends up being bought by Steve. Steve has no idea what's happened. Who knows how many people Chris has been bought and sold throughout. There's Steve is not going to get punished for me kidnapping and selling Chris. That would be ridiculous. And that's why, from
Why?
the Jewish
Why would
perspective,
it be
they are just
ridiculous?
simply
Time
the
out, time out, time
customers.
out,
They
time
are
out,
just
time
simply
out,
the
time out.
customers that are
Why would it be
buying
ridiculous?
slaves.
Why would it be ridiculous when human beings speak? So when he talks about the like extending the indentured servitude and saying that you want to be your master forever, you want him to be your master forever type of thing, you have to go to like the priest with that slave and they have to declare for themselves. The interesting part about that is because the reason for it is because you can't just say, oh yeah, bro, this one dude said he wanted to be with me forever, so he's just my property forever. No.
But don't you think
No.
that it's kind of whack that they're
so you
using
have
his
to
family against him?
So you have to, the slave themselves have to advocate for themselves. So you can't just buy one of them,
Yeah,
somebody
but
from
it's
someone else.
manipulation. Don't you agree?
No, it's not manipulation. You cannot just buy somebody from somebody else and ask, hey, are they there of their own free will type of thing? And they be like, yeah, it's all cool. No, you have to ask the slave, like, hey, do you want to be in this lifestyle? That's the question. You cannot just take it at someone else's face value. That is not how the purchasing of a slave goes. It is not just, here, I have this property, I want to sell it. Now, the indentured servitude, it might be signing over a contract, that's different. But the
This is the
form
indentured servitude you're
slavery,
talking about, though. What you're talking about, the man being done with his contract, but saying I want to stay because he has my wife and kids. That is indentured servitude. That is the system manipulating this individual and holding his family against him so that he feels he has no choice but to stay this person's slave for the rest of his life, because how else is he going to be with his family? I think that is legal manipulation that is being allowed in these verses, and I think that that's extremely repulsive.
yeah, I feel like at this point we're just having a circular conversation. So,
All right. Well, I do welcome any links that you wanted to send or whatever in the DMs. If you don't mind, I'll send you some back as well.
yeah,
Maybe
for
a
sure.
couple book
I'll
titles as
probably do
well.
that within like the next
Um, but
5 minutes. So I might talk to Jake for 2 seconds.
sure. But I would deeply encourage you to do more of a study specifically with that Genesis 16 chapter and how that fits in with Exodus 21 and Leviticus 25. Because I think
Yep,
that if you
it's already in my
take
notes.
the
I
whole
appreciate
picture
you.
together, you'll definitely see that slavery and indentured servitude are both allowed by God in the Bible. But I appreciate you for your time, and I look forward to your messages.
Yep.
Look forward to your messages.
Yep.